Hi, everyone. We will get started in 1 second. Thank you for being here today. We are going to record today, so I want to go ahead and get that started and also just make some adjustments here to my screen to make sure I've got everything right and set up. I will go ahead and start the recording. All right. Thank you for being here today, everyone. We greatly appreciate your time to talk about the imposter syndrome and how to overcome that and manage it more effectively. So as we start to dive in here today, just a couple of quick admin housekeeping items. You should be able to see my screen and hear me okay. I'm going to remain on video if I can, as long as my internet does what it's supposed to do, but I'll hop off if needed. And you will receive a copy of the recording of this automatically within the next 24 hours. So please take a look at your email or keep an eye on that because you will receive a copy of the recording automatically. And we are streaming on YouTube Live as well. So really quickly, we are going to talk about overcoming the imposter syndrome. And I guess one of the first things that I wanted to say is that we have found more and more people are struggling with this. And I think a lot of it is because during COVID, people changed jobs pretty quickly. In some cases, people have gotten laid off recently and tried to do something new. And then post-COVID, there was the Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle. Just so many things have been happening in the past several years that we have noticed an uptick in people needing to talk about the imposter syndrome and feeling like they have less confidence than they would like to in their work for different reasons. So you are not alone, and that's why we're here today. So quick intro to me. I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm proud to be partnered with Georgia State and have lived in Atlanta for just over 20 years now. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author, and I've been coaching and training since 2002. Undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and a master's degree from the University of Illinois. And the advice that we're giving you all today is advice that we give to all of our clients. We've got some great coaches and resume writers on our team that help clients not just get into the right career path for them, but succeed in it, because all this stuff that we're talking about today related to confidence, presenting yourself effectively, being positive and proactive about steering your career in the right direction is a huge part of being in the right fit in the long run. So we have to talk with our clients all the time about the imposter syndrome. And the advice we'll give you today is advice we give to them as well. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the imposter syndrome and how to define it, what it means, the internal and external impact that we find with our clients that happens most commonly with them. Obviously, we'll give you some tools to manage, and we'll give you some action steps to take along the way too. If you do have questions that you want to ask us about the imposter syndrome, feel free to email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. Happy to answer that and happy to talk a little bit more about our coaching services as well if you feel like you need it. So what is the imposter syndrome? I think when we, hear this word, we kind of feel like, gosh, this sounds really intense. And we want you to know that it doesn't have to be that intense. It's intense in the way that it can impact your career and your success and making sure that you're promoting yourself and all of that. But it's something that can come and go throughout the course of our career. People will have ebbs and flows in terms of feeling this way, depending on what's going on with their job at any given time, and also in certain situations, but not in others. So the technical definition is listed on this slide here. It's basically a psychological kind of thing that occurs for us, where people are unable or have a harder time internalizing their accomplishments, really taking ownership of what they're good at and what they've accomplished in their career. And in some cases for people, not always, but some people can feel convinced at one time or another that they're frauds in a way, and they don't really know what they're doing, or they don't deserve the success that they have achieved for whatever reason. And in some cases as well, people will assume that their career success is because they got lucky or they got a break from an employer that, gave them a chance or whatever it is, rather than, hey, I'm good at this and this is why this has happened. So think about it for yourselves, please, as like, when do you experience this? Kind of what happens? And do you feel like it's all three of these items for you, or if it's one or two of them? Because awareness is the first step, right? Understanding when and how you experience this can help you better manage it and be more objective about it. And as part of letting you know that you're not alone, this is a really common thing. Even really successful people consider themselves frauds. So 2 out of 5 people and 70% of professionals can feel like an imposter at one time or another. And something I want to pick up on here before we go to the next slide is I want you also to think about, even if you journal about this for the next couple of weeks at work, for example, think about when this tends to happen to you. Is it when you're communicating or working with a certain person or client or working on a certain type of project? You can start to identify kind of themes when this pops up, and that can help you better tackle this whole thing because you can prepare a little bit more for when those things are coming up in order to be ready for it and deal with the imposter syndrome. So usually we can get triggered by certain situations, and it's not every single thing in our job typically. So start to think about that as well as an additional action step. And we already talked about this a little bit, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but COVID and post-COVID really exacerbated, like I said, the imposter syndrome. I think for a lot of people, we were thrown into new processes and systems, and just a lot happened to us. And I think sometimes people are still kind of adjusting to those things. And some people are better at being flexible like this than others, and that's just normal. So again, know that you're not alone. This is a common thing. And when you think about or add to this virtual environment that a lot of us are still in some way, shape, or form, just a lot of kind of impacts can happen there that can cause or create the imposter syndrome. So again, before we get to the next slide, think about why this may be happening for you. If it's a little bit situational with what's going on in your life or your career right now, and when those ebbs and flows are, that can help you tackle it more. One of the examples we wanted to give you really quickly when we talk with you about confident, successful people is if you find yourself comparing yourself to other people within your organization who are successful and you're like, well, they don't seem to have this problem and they're always confident, that can make the imposter syndrome worse. So this example here is a quote from Inc. magazine from several years ago. It was a guy who founded a really successful health food store. And he even said literally in this article that he didn't feel like he deserved his success. It was because of luck or the team. Now, here's the thing about imposter syndrome is we're not trying to say to you to overcome it, you suddenly have to be really arrogant and you're, like tooting your own horn the whole time and you're not providing, kudos to your team or other people. There's a balance here of this. But what we find is that people who suffer from imposter syndrome, they're not promoting themselves as much as they could. They're not like saying thank you so much when someone gives them a compliment. They're not taking ownership of, look, I've got these talents and skills and not everyone is good at these types of things. So even really successful people can have this. So if you find yourself comparing, I need you to stop yourself and start to focus on something else and have an affirmation that could help you, etc. Okay. 9 times out of 10, when we talk with our clients and we ask them up front, what gets in your way of achieving your career goals, they always tell us they are their biggest obstacle to their success. You would think that it could be external circumstances, but it's usually not. It's usually ourselves, we're getting in our own way, okay? I'd love for you to think about this now. And if you could put this in the chat box, that would be great. Just an informal poll here, how often you feel like an imposter. Because again, starting to think about when this happens, how frequently is it? And if there are trends or themes for when you feel this way, you can start to make changes in how you approach certain things, or maybe even changes in your job or your schedule a little bit to make adjustments for this. So for you all out there, is it 25% of the time? Is it 50% of the time? Or is it 75% of the time? If you could put that in the chat, that would be great. We'd love to hear from you. But again, think about this for yourself as well. So let's talk about this internal impact. And there's kind of two impacts or types of impacts that we would assert come from or result from the imposter syndrome. And one of them, the obvious one that we've just been talking about a little bit already, is the internal impact. And what we mean by that is how we feel about ourselves as people and professionals, whether we feel confident and good about ourselves or not, and the negative self-talk that can go on for us that's like a tape playing in our head over and over when certain things happen or come up, where you're telling yourself, gosh, I feel like a fake. I don't really know what I'm doing. Other people think I know what I'm doing, but I really don't. I will tell you, I have felt this way before. I had a job before I started my coaching practice over 25 years ago, and I was hired for the job. They thought I could do it, and I could actually, but I didn't really believe in myself. And I felt like they were expecting me to do things that I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. So this feeling like a fake could be one of the things you feel, and you want to start to notice if that's the case for you. The second thing may apply to you, and this could be attributing your success to luck. So if you find yourself constantly, instead of saying, well, I got here because I know what I'm doing, and instead you're saying, well, I just got lucky, or you're discounting yourself all the time, that means imposter syndrome is happening. And the discounting your success just over and over is a big problem for us, because eventually it can really turn into a defeatist attitude. One of the things that you want to think about, and we'll start to talk about the tools to manage as we go here, but as you're thinking about the themes and situations where this comes up for you, if you sense that you've got a lot of this negative self-talk, we tend to call those gremlins in coaching. There's a great book that we recommend to our clients. It's called Taming Your Gremlin. It's by Rick Carson. Yeah, Rick Carson. You can find it on Amazon. It's a short, easy read. And we love it because it helps you start to talk back to those negative inner voices, push them aside, send them on a vacation. We've even had clients write down their negative thinking and rip it up and toss it in the trash can. What we find is the sooner and faster you're able to start noticing when this negative self-talk is happening, the sooner you'll be able to manage it. That diffuses it a little bit more. So the kind of analogy that I give to our clients is, instead of being the gremlin's victim, you're being the observer. That's going to take away some of its power, because you can start to say to yourself, oh yeah, that's that thing that that coach talked about in the webinar last week. Those are just my negative self, my negative thoughts, my doubts, et cetera, et cetera. Those things aren't necessarily true. It's just the stuff I'm playing in my head. Okay. So there are lots of different things you can do about this, but you want to start to notice, for example, what are the things that you tend to say to yourself over and over? What are those negative thoughts or negative feelings that you have? Because what we find, they're usually the same things over and over. Normally, if we use the gremlin concept with a client, normally they've got 2 or 3 gremlins. It's not 10 of them, but they're saying the same thing over and over, wah, wah, wah in their head. Okay. Let's look at and talk about the external impact that happens as a result of the imposter syndrome. And we also want you here to start to identify what's happening for you. Where is your career not going in the direction that you want it to, or where are you not achieving your career goals, so that you understand the result and can start to steer the ship in a different direction. So we have lots of things that our clients will tell us is the result of the imposter syndrome for them. And some of them are listed on this slide. You may have other ones, and we'd love to hear from you in the chat if you'd like to put what some of your impacts are. Some people don't apply for jobs or promotions because, for example, they think, well, I don't have all of the qualifications, so I'm never going to get the job. So I'm going to not even apply in the first place. We had a prospective client come to us once, and she literally had not gotten a promotion or a raise in 10 years. She was really happy at her job and just had never thought about, well, I need to ask for more. Like she discounted her success too much. And 10 years is a really long time. Some people will understate their experience or their skill. Some people will tell us that they over prepare for tasks and spend more time like being a perfectionist about some things than they need to. And all of these result in higher stress for people. So the other thing that you want to notice and write down for us today, please, is what's the one or two biggest negative impact for you? What are the things that you are not doing that you need to set a goal for and say, okay, look, I'm going to speak up and, take credit for something. And the next 2 meetings I have with my team, it can be short and sweet. It doesn't have to be huge, but creating and writing down very tangible action steps that can help you move the needle in this direction can make a really big difference. And what I want you to know is that small changes here can actually lead to really big results. I know the imposter syndrome can feel really overwhelming for people, but what we find is when people start to notice their negative thinking more, they might write down an affirmation that they put on their bathroom mirror or their fridge and say it out loud to themselves for 2 weeks. It makes a big difference. It can have a really big impact. So although I realize that this can feel really overwhelming for you, please know that a few of the tangible action steps that we're talking about today can help you move in the right direction. And it is a snowball effect. Once you start getting the ball rolling, things will continue to improve because what you're doing is you're starting to shift your mindset. Now, I'll say one thing as we progress here is that in some cases, your imposter syndrome may be valid, meaning you may not be as qualified as you could be for one element of your job, or you may not know how to do something, a specific task or work with a specific customer or something within your job. And so there may be some truth to what some of these feelings are or thoughts that you have. But the goal here is for you to take that element of truth. It's totally fine to do that and be like, yes, okay, this is true, but I'm doing something about it. Or this doesn't mean that I'm completely unqualified for my whole job. I just have to sort out this one thing. So it's about shifting your mindset into this is a challenge or problem to solve versus I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm a fake, et cetera, et cetera. If you feel like you need more help with this, we always offer these during our Georgia State programs. We're happy to do a free strategy session with you. I'll give you some additional advice about what's going on for your unique situation. And it's a chance to also learn about our coaching services. You can just email us. It's the same email as before. And I'll put it in the chat here if I can get a chance to do that while we're talking. So let's talk next about some specific tools to manage. And we've got actually a client example that I really like because I think it's just a really good kind of tangible example for someone who struggled with the imposter syndrome and what happened as a result for them. I just put the email in the chat box. So there are lots of different tools to manage. And as we talk through these, what I'd like you to think about or know is we're not expecting you to do all of them, like all, 10 things all at once. Pick one or two things that resonate the most for you based on your situation, your personality type, and what's going on for you. And then you can play around with your different options over time, see what works and what doesn't for you. And what we find, by the way, and we'll start to talk about improving confidence, is there are lots of ways to improve your confidence. But you need to keep working on it on a regular basis. It's not something that's just one and done. So quick example here was client Beth. If you look on this slide, when she came to us, she had a ton of imposter syndrome going on. She actually did not have a college degree. However, she was very high up in a marketing position locally here in Atlanta at Home Depot. So really successful person, senior level, executive there. But she always had these nagging thoughts in her mind of, oh, well, my bosses just always gave me a break because, they liked me, I got lucky, whatever it was. So some of the things that we recommended to Beth were things listed on this slide. Number one is you can, and we really like this one for our clients, and you can always tell them a coach told you to do this. You got it as a homework assignment. But interview other people about what your strengths are. There's two reasons why we like this. Number one, it helps build your confidence. Like hearing from people who know you well can help kind of be like affirmations for you. And you can even write those things down somewhere, that you've got like a props or a kudos folder in your email where you read like testimonials or good things from other people. That's listed here on the right-hand side. But interviewing other people we also like is because we tend, just as human beings, we tend to discount what comes naturally to us. We assume that everyone's good at, the same things that we are, because if we're so good at it and it just comes so naturally to us, and even, we've been doing it for a little while, we just think, well, isn't this normal for everyone? And it's not. So notice those places where you discount what comes naturally to you, and interviewing other people can help bring those out and give you that validation of, yeah, no, I don't know how to do that stuff that you can do. A second thing we suggest is something we've talked about a little bit already along the way, is affirmations. Psychological studies show that you can change the thoughts in your mind if you're focused on it and do this regularly. We have had clients have great success with really short and sweet affirmations. It's got to be short and sweet. It's got to be inspiring to you. And studies actually have shown that if you say it to yourself in the mirror out loud and you're looking yourself in the eye, I know it may sound crazy, but it does work more effectively, that people's confidence is boosted faster by doing that. Your affirmations need to be something that you believe in and are true. So don't just come up with something that you're like, well, I don't totally believe that. So play around with that a little bit. A third thing that we'll have our clients do is write down all of your accomplishments, even since childhood. Post them on your, wall of your office, something like that. That usually helps boost their confidence. And three other things is number one is to take small risks every day. And what we mean by this, it's not taking a huge risk where you go get fired. But for example, try something new, volunteer your time for a different type of project. If you're more introverted and tend to be quiet during meetings, force yourself to speak up in your next 5 meetings a little bit more. Confidence is a muscle. You have to work it out in order for it to stay the way it needs to be, right? Or else it's going to atrophy. And taking small risks every day, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, can help boost your confidence over time and push aside the imposter syndrome. And finally, the last two on the right-hand side, there was actually a TED Talk about this, about how your body language shapes not just who you are and how you come across to the world, but also how you feel about yourself. Pay attention to how you're sitting at work. If you have to have a tough conversation with someone, like sit up straighter, then make the phone call. In some cases, if it is like a phone call, let's say, and you're alone in your office, stand up and even walk around if you have to. When we tell clients during a coaching call, get into a posture that makes you feel more confident or that means confidence to you, they feel better right away. And we didn't do anything. We just told them to get into that. So your physical body language can make a huge difference in how you feel and your confidence, especially in specific touchy situations. And we already talked about the last one, the props email folder. What some of our clients will do too is they will have a list of accomplishments, testimonials, kudos from clients, their boss, etc., and have it like as a document on their desktop that they can reference every time. And what some other people will do is at the end of each day for 2 weeks, write down what you accomplished that day. That can help you focus in a more positive direction and less on those negative inner voices. We find with imposter syndrome, getting a buddy, just like with weight loss and everything else, it helps, it's effective. So whether you leverage a friend, a family member, a coach, or a mentor, and do some check-ins with them while you're working on the imposter syndrome, that can help a lot. They may give you additional ideas about how you can handle it, but getting that accountability of like, how is it going? Are you really tackling this head on? Can make a huge difference. Because the thing with imposter syndrome is just like with anything else, that like negative emotions, if you will, is it can start to kind of push you into a hole where you retreat inside yourself more and more. And you've got to like talk with other people, get support, put yourself or push yourself outside your comfort zone to ask for help with this a little bit from whoever it is reasonable to do so in order to get that help. And it makes a huge difference, not just when you have people around you, but when you're talking through these types of things with people, that helps take away its power as well as part of it. One of the other things that we would want to share with you, and actually there's two of them, this slide and the next one, is to really get a good handle on what your strengths are. That can help with imposter syndrome as well. So we like this top 10 leadership skills wheel. This is from Development Dimensions International. It's a highly regarded management consulting firm. And one of the things you could do is do a self-assessment and say, okay, let me write down which areas I'm best at and try to tailor your day and your career path in that direction so that you're playing to your strengths that much more. But just knowing what your strengths are in the first place can help boost confidence, move imposter syndrome aside. And another way to recognize and leverage your strengths and be clear, in addition to, like we talked about, interviewing other people, is to take the StrengthsFinder assessment. This is actually from the Gallup organization that owns the StrengthsFinder. Or if you don't have time to do that, not as interested in that, this is their sign model that can help demonstrate to you when you're leveraging one of your strengths, when you're successful and you feel effective, when you look forward to a certain task or working with a certain person or on a specific project at work. And think about past experience as well. When you feel like you're in the zone, like you're in growth mode and you're inquisitive and really focused, that's a sign that you're leveraging a strength. And when you've completed a task and you feel really like fulfilled and authentic, that's another sign that you're leveraging your strengths. So start to pay more attention to your strengths versus your weaknesses, your challenges, and obstacles. And that's going to help you push aside the imposter syndrome as well. Finally, before we start to get close to wrapping up for today, this is our ideal career model that we use with our clients to help them define their career direction, conduct a really good job search, but also as part of all of this, understand what their brand is. Understanding your brand as part of understanding your strengths and everything else can help boost your confidence enormously. We want you to think about and focus on this model, what your strengths are and your unique combination of your strengths, your personality strengths and your type there, past education and your experience. Everyone is unique. I mean, we've heard this before, right? But your past experience, education coupled with your strengths and personality type, it's one of a kind. And you really need to understand what that is and what you bring to the table in order to not just promote yourself and sell yourself effectively in your current job, get that next promotion, et cetera, but really be more confident and grounded in, look, this is my brand. I may not be good at every single thing, but these are the things I'm really good at. And it's okay. You can be at peace a little bit more about the things that you're not as good at. Okay. And that can help with imposter syndrome. We talked about this already. Keeping an accomplishments document and reading it daily can help enormously. And we talked a little bit about like some common issues and concerns a little bit earlier. Like what we're talking about here is taking ownership of what you're good at versus being arrogant. It's taking credit when credit is due, but also giving credit to your team at the same time. If any of you have taken a career break, are in a new role, or were laid off, and this is impacting your imposter syndrome, I would say all of the advice that we're giving you today and like focusing on how this next step for you could be an opportunity to really find a great job and kind of a new leaf in your career could help you feel a lot better and deal with the imposter syndrome a little bit more. And finally, before we go, we want you to create a plan. So like I said, come up with 2 action items or pick 2 of the things that we talked about from today, whether it's finding a mentor, like which leadership strengths are you really strong at and which ones you need to improve. Do you want to share like your plan with your manager if you have a really good relationship with them? If you don't, that's okay too. But write down at least 2 things before we go today, please, that you will take on as action steps in the next week and try them out, see how it goes. As a reminder, you will receive a copy of the recording from today so you can listen in if you missed anything as we progress, because I know I threw a lot at you. And what's the end of the story before we go with client Beth? How did things turn out for her? She overcame her imposter syndrome and she actually applied for a job in Chicago. And it was such a huge promotion, raise, everything else for her, that she not only took the job, but moved her whole family up there for that purpose. We were so proud of her. So please know that this is something that you can overcome and deal with. Take it in baby steps and be persistent and positive about moving forward as much as you possibly can. We'd be happy to talk with you about our coaching services and how we might be able to help you with this further. Don't hesitate to reach out and join us next month for our next topic. I don't have it in front of me. Next time I will be prepared for that, but we'd love to have you at our next session next month. So thank you so much for your time today, everyone. We hope this was helpful for you. Have a great rest of the day.